Year was 1835, and the vast fields of California shimmered under a relentless sun, golden stalks swaying like a sea of secrets. The air carried the scent of wild grass, sun-baked earth, and a faint tang of the distant ocean. Somewhere between the rolling hills and the silent orchards stood Haunted Vale Manor, an estate whispered about in every neighboring town, its shadow stretching long across the fields, as if it had stories to tell that no one dared to hear. Elena Winston rode slowly across the main path, her long chestnut hair dancing in the wind, her heart heavy with anticipation. She was young, yet the manor called to her with a weight of legacy she could almost feel pressing against her chest. The tales she had heard as a child, of love, betrayal, and secrets buried in the walls, now seemed tangible, almost alive. Every step of her horse echoed across the cobblestone, mixing with the faint cries of distant birds and the whisper of the wind, carrying with it the manor's silent history. As she approached the iron gates, she noticed them slightly ajar, swaying with the soft summer breeze. It was as if the house itself had been expecting her. Elena dismounted, the leather of her riding gloves creaking as she tightened her grip on the reins. Each step toward the manor's front door felt like stepping deeper into a story she had been destined to uncover. The walls, once painted a proud white, were now tinged with the sepia of age, the shadows of decades curling across the pillars and cracked windows. Inside, the air was cooler, scented faintly with aged wood and fading roses. Dust motes floated lazily in the sunlight streaming through the tall, narrow windows. Elena's eyes swept over the grand hall, taking in the chandeliers long dulled by time, the faded tapestries that told stories she could almost read, and the staircase that led to the upper floors, where the real secrets awaited. It was then that she first heard it, the faintest note of a piano, soft and hesitant, echoing from somewhere deep within the manor. Her pulse quickened. She had expected silence, emptiness, perhaps a ghost or two. But this was alive, deliberate. She followed the sound, each step careful, until she reached a small sitting room at the far end of the hall. There, bathed in a thin ribbon of sunlight, stood a piano, its surface scratched and worn, yet playing itself in the hands of no one. And then she saw him, a young man, dark-haired, with eyes like storm clouds, and a presence that made the air feel denser, more charged. He was staring at the piano as though listening to the notes echoing from a memory only he could hear. For a moment, neither of them moved. Time seemed suspended, the walls of the manor holding their breath. "Elena," he said finally, his voice low, almost a whisper, though she had never heard it before. "You shouldn't be here, not yet, but perhaps it is your fate." Her heart raced, a mixture of fear and a thrill she had never known. There was something magnetic about him, something ancient and sorrowful that called to her. The manor itself seemed to lean closer, urging them together, whispering of a love and a story that had begun long before either of them had been born. Elena stepped closer, drawn by both curiosity and instinct, and for the first time felt that Haunted Vale Manor was more than a building. It was a living entity, guarding secrets of the heart, of passion, of forbidden love, and of tragedies that demanded to be remembered. The piano's notes faded into silence, but their echoes lingered, entwining their fates in ways neither could yet comprehend. The year was 1835. The fields of California stretched endlessly outside, and the story of Elena and the mysterious stranger beneath the haunted veil had only just begun. The following morning, the manor seemed different, almost alive in its quietude. Sunlight filtered through the tall, narrow windows, casting long, golden beams across the dusty floorboards. Elena wandered through the halls, each step stirring faint echoes, as if the house itself remembered every footfall of those who had come before her. The piano from the previous day had fallen silent, yet its absence seemed deliberate, as though the manor demanded patience and with it understanding. She could still feel the presence of the stranger, the man whose stormy eyes had pierced her very soul. His name she had not yet learned, but his image lingered with a stubborn clarity, like an engraving on her mind. Something about him spoke of secrets buried deep, of sorrow that had been carried for decades, of stories untold. Curiosity and an inexplicable pull led her to explore the upper floors. Each landing revealed rooms untouched by time yet heavy with memory, faded tapestries depicting distant estates, ornate chairs draped in dust, and mirrors that reflected more than mere physical forms. One in particular caught her attention, a tall mirror framed in blackened oak. As she peered into it, her reflection shimmered, subtly altered. She swore for a fraction of a second she saw the stranger standing behind her. But when she turned, the hallway was empty, save for the whisper of wind through a broken window. By afternoon, Elena discovered a hidden staircase tucked behind a tapestry, narrow and spiraling upward. It led to the attic, a room cluttered with objects long forgotten, trunks sealed with rusty locks, journals tied with faded ribbons, and sketches depicting people whose faces were obscured by shadow. She pulled one journal from the pile and gently opened it. The handwriting was delicate, looping, filled with confessions and desires, moments of love and betrayal preserved for no audience but the house itself. The words drew her in, revealing stories of young lovers separated by circumstance, secret meetings under the moon, and letters never sent. As she read, the faintest sound of footsteps reached her ears, not from the stairwell, but somewhere deeper within the attic. She froze, her heart hammering. The presence of the stranger was undeniable. She called softly, "Who's there?" A shadow detached itself from the corner, forming into the familiar figure. His eyes, stormy and unreadable, met hers immediately. "You shouldn't be reading those," he said, his voice a mix of warning and longing. "Some stories aren't ready to be told." Elena stepped forward, emboldened despite the fear curling in her chest. "And yet they are," she whispered. "I think they need to be. I think someone needs to remember." For a long moment neither moved. The air between them was charged, heavy with unspoken words and the weight of decades. Then, almost imperceptibly, he lowered his gaze to the journal in her hands. "Perhaps you are the one," he said. As dusk fell over the fields, painting the horizon in shades of crimson and gold, Elena felt an undeniable connection, not just to the stranger, but to the house, to the stories, and to a love that had been waiting across time for someone brave enough to uncover it. The manor's shadows lengthened, folding around them, protective and watchful, as if the estate itself approved of what was unfolding. Outside, the wind stirred the tall stalks of the fields, carrying whispers of past lovers, hidden rendezvous, and promises left unfulfilled. Elena and the stranger remained in the attic, the distance between them charged with anticipation and silent understanding. In that quiet, suspended moment, she knew her life and her heart had been irrevocably intertwined with Haunted Vale Manor, its secrets, and the mysterious man who had appeared like a shadow she couldn't escape, nor did she want to. The night deepened, but neither moved to leave. The piano in the hall, though silent, seemed to hum softly in response to their presence, a lullaby for the beginning of something neither fully understood, yet both were destined to explore. The dawn broke slowly over the fields of California, casting a pale golden light that shimmered across the swaying wheat and distant hills. 1835 had begun like any other year for the surrounding towns, yet for Haunted Vale Manor and for Elena Winston, this day would mark the deepening of a story that had been centuries in the making. She awoke to the sound of wind rustling through the broken shutters, a low, persistent hum that seemed almost like a whisper. The manor itself appeared alive, almost breathing, as though aware that she was no longer an intruder, but an integral part of its unfolding narrative. Elena descended the creaking stairs carefully, the soft leather of her boots barely making a sound on the dust-covered planks. The sunlight streaming through the tall, narrow windows revealed motes of dust dancing in the air. catching the light like tiny stars. Every corner of the manor seemed to hold a memory, a fragment of someone's life long forgotten. She paused at the base of the staircase, hearing again that faint hum, the echo of the piano from 2 nights ago, or perhaps the lingering resonance of the unseen hands that had played it. The memory of the stranger's stormy eyes and the mysterious presence he carried pressed against her thoughts, stirring a mixture of fear, fascination, and longing she could not name. Her steps led her toward the study, a room she had explored briefly but never fully understood. Shelves lined with leather-bound journals, yellowed letters tied with fraying ribbons, and stacks of papers that seemed haphazard yet deliberate greeted her. She ran her fingers along the spines of the books, feeling the embossed letters and intricate designs beneath her touch, a tactile connection to lives that had once breathed within these walls. It was here that the manor's secrets truly began to press upon her. She realized that every object, every artifact, was a piece of a puzzle, a record not only of history but of emotion, desire, and longing. Pulling a particularly worn journal from the middle shelf, she opened it to a page filled with looping, delicate handwriting. The entries spoke of a young woman named Isabella, whose forbidden love with a worker at the estate had been meticulously documented in secrecy. Each line dripped with emotion, moments of tender intimacy, stolen glances in sun-dappled orchards, letters folded into hidden corners of the manor, and nights spent whispering under the veil of darkness. Elena read aloud, her voice trembling, and felt the walls absorb her words, amplifying them into the vast hall beyond. It was as though the manor itself recognized the story, acknowledging it as truth that demanded to be remembered. A sudden sound, a soft creak above her head, made her start. She looked up to see the shadow of the stranger moving across the balcony of the upper floor. He descended gracefully, his gaze fixed on her, carrying that same storm-cloud intensity that had unsettled her before. He did not speak at first. Instead, he studied her, his eyes measuring, assessing, and in that silent appraisal, Elena felt a magnetic pull she could not resist. "You're going too deep," he said finally, his voice low, yet unmistakably compelling. "The manor, it does not like to be uncovered too quickly. Secrets, once revealed, have consequences you cannot yet imagine. I have to," Elena whispered, clutching the journal to her chest. "Someone has to know. Someone has to remember." Her words were firm, though her heart fluttered with uncertainty. The stranger moved closer, closing the space between them, and for a moment time seemed suspended. The walls of the manor held their breath. Outside, the wheat swayed in the morning light, rustling like whispered voices. He reached out, just barely brushing her hand, sending a shiver through her. "Then you will remember," he said, "and you will speak for those who cannot." They spent hours together that morning in the study, poring over letters, journals, and sketches, cross-referencing dates and events. Each discovery pulled them deeper into the manor's history, but also closer to one another. Their hands brushed over papers, their gazes met across candlelight, and the air between them grew thick with anticipation, longing, and the unspoken acknowledgment of attraction. The mansion seemed to respond. Floorboards hummed softly, shadows lengthened and curled toward them, and faint whispers echoed in corners where no wind blew. By late afternoon, Elena wandered into the garden, a courtyard overrun with wild roses and ivy, their blooms blood, red against the weathered stone. She paused at the edge of a fountain, staring into the still water and seeing both her reflection and the fleeting image of the stranger behind her. She turned, but he was gone. The air seemed charged with tension, almost as if the manor itself were teasing her, teaching her patience, or testing her resolve. The day waned into evening, the sky painted in hues of crimson and gold. Elena returned inside, guided by instinct more than memory, to find the stranger waiting at the grand piano. He played softly, the notes melancholic yet mesmerizing, each chord carrying centuries of sorrow, desire, and hope. She approached him, the sound of her footsteps blending with the music, and for the first time They spoke without words, the piano and her presence bridging the silence. "You hear them, don't you?" he asked finally, eyes on the keys. "The stories, the lives, they demand acknowledgement." Elena nodded. "I do, and I will not let them fade into nothing." As night fell over Haunted Vale Manor, the candlelight flickered across the walls, illuminating sketches, letters, and artifacts that had been waiting for someone like Elena. Outside, the fields whispered in the wind, carrying the faint echoes of long, lost lovers, whispered promises, and secrets buried in the soil. The manor's pulse, subtle yet palpable, resonated through her own heartbeat. And then, the moment she had sensed since her arrival finally arrived, he reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining with a magnetic inevitability. The connection was electric, stirring not only desire, but a deep, profound recognition. Here, beneath the haunted veil of history and memory, amidst secrets older than either of them, a romance was blossoming, fiery, forbidden, and inseparable from the very essence of the manor itself. Hours passed like moments as they explored the hidden corners of the house together, uncovering letters tucked in false panels, diaries bound with forgotten ribbons, and sketches revealing stolen glances of lovers past. Each discovery mirrored their own tentative, growing connection, a reflection of passion constrained by circumstance, history, and silence. Finally, they paused on the balcony overlooking the fields, the moon casting silver across the rolling hills. "Do you understand now?" he asked, voice soft, eyes shadowed with intensity. "The manor, it chooses who can bear its stories, and it has chosen you." Elena's heart pounded, not with fear, but with exhilaration. "I understand," she whispered, "and I accept." The wind carried the faintest echo of voices through the fields, the long, forgotten whispers of lovers, rebels, and dreamers who had lingered in the estate for decades. Elena realized then that Haunted Vale Manor was not merely a building, nor a repository of history. It was a living witness, a keeper of love, betrayal, and memory. And in her heart, she knew that she and the stranger were now irrevocably entwined with its story, becoming the newest chapter in a legacy that demanded both courage and passion to survive. The night deepened. Shadows pooled in corners, the piano's notes faded into silence, yet the manor pulsed with anticipation. Outside, the crimson fields swayed, bearing witness to a love that had begun under the weight of centuries, the first flame of passion lighting a story that would not soon be forgotten. Elena rested her hand against his, feeling the warmth, the promise, and the inexorable pull of fate. In that suspended moment, beneath the haunted veil of California's golden fields, she understood that her life had irrevocably changed. Not just because of the secrets she would uncover, but because of the love she had found, fiery, forbidden, and destined to echo through every shadowed corner of Haunted Vale Manor. The moon rose high, illuminating the estate in silver light. The wind carried distant whispers, soft as a lover's breath. "Remember us, love us, bear our stories," and Elena, standing beside the stranger, whispered back into the night, "I will." The morning after their long night at the piano, Haunted Vale Manor felt different, charged, alive, almost expectant. Elena woke to sunlight spilling across the floorboards of her guest room, filtering through cracks in the heavy curtains. The air was thick with the scent of wild roses and old wood, the combination intoxicating and slightly unsettling. The manor, with all its shadows and whispers, seemed to watch her, as if assessing her resolve to bear the weight of its secrets. Descending the staircase, Elena paused to touch the rail, its wood polished smooth over decades of hands brushing against it. Her mind replayed the night before, the stranger's stormy eyes, the brush of his hand against hers, the unspoken acknowledgement that their lives had become entwined not by choice but by destiny. Every heartbeat echoed through the hall, in rhythm with the house itself. She made her way to the study, drawn by instinct more than intention. The journals and letters lay scattered across the table, each one a fragment of a past that demanded attention. One journal, smaller and worn, caught her eye. Its leather was cracked and soft, carrying the faint scent of lavender and smoke. Opening it, she found sketches of the estate as it had been decades before. The gardens immaculate, the hallways bustling with servants, and in almost every corner, hidden meetings, secret exchanges, and lovers' glances captured in delicate strokes. As she traced the sketches, the sense of being watched intensified. A shadow moved in the doorway, soft, deliberate. The stranger emerged, his presence commanding yet restrained, eyes unreadable. "You've been called here for a reason," he said, voice low, carrying the weight of centuries. The manor does not reveal its secrets lightly. Each discovery binds you closer to it, and to me, Elena swallowed, the thrill of fear and attraction mingling in her chest. "I feel it," she admitted. "Every story, every letter, it's alive. I can feel the hearts behind them." He stepped closer, their proximity charged with anticipation. "And now you must understand," he whispered, "that love and memory are intertwined here. The passion that once flourished within these walls, it lingers, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting for a witness who can endure." They explored the manor together that day, uncovering hidden compartments behind panels, journals tucked into false drawers, and letters pressed between pages of old ledgers. Each discovery deepened their connection, weaving their own burgeoning love into the tapestry of the manor's history. Their hands brushed over the journals, over the keys of the piano, over each other, and each touch sent shivers through both. As afternoon faded, they found themselves in the attic, a space cluttered with the remnants of forgotten lives. Trunks, bundles of letters, and sketches filled every corner. The stranger reached for a bundle tied with faded ribbon and handed it to Elena. "This belonged to her," he said, nodding toward the sketch of a young woman, lips pressed in a faint smile. "Her love was forbidden, much like ours may become." Elena opened it carefully, revealing a necklace, delicate and simple, its chain worn thin with time. She endured. Elena whispered, eyes wide. "She loved despite everything." "Yes," he said, his hand brushing hers. The touch lingered, electric, almost reckless. "And so must we. The manor demands witness, but it also permits connection. It has chosen us to continue what they began, to remember and to love, even against the odds." The wind rose outside, rustling the ivy along the manor's walls, carrying whispers that were almost audible. They were not merely echoes. They were voices of the past, of lovers and dreamers, observing silently, approvingly. Elena and the stranger, bound by curiosity and something far deeper, let the attic become a sanctuary where history, passion, and destiny intertwined. As night fell, the manor's shadows lengthened, curling around them protectively. The candles flickered, illuminating the journals, sketches, and letters that chronicled centuries of emotion. Elena leaned against him, feeling the beat of his heart align with her own. In that charged silence, she realized that Haunted Vale Manor was more than a house. It was a living chronicle of love, secrecy, and endurance. Outside, the fields shimmered silver in the moonlight, carrying the faint echoes of old promises, secret rendezvous, and longing hearts. Elena whispered, almost to herself, "I will remember them, I will honor them, and I will love." The stranger's lips brushed her hair in a quiet, deliberate gesture as if to seal the vow. "Then we begin again," he said softly. And beneath the haunted veil of history and memory, their love, tentative yet unbreakable, began to take root, fierce, forbidden, and destined to become another enduring chapter in the manor's endless story. The morning fog lingered over the vast California fields, curling like silent specters across the golden stalks. Haunted Vale Manor loomed ahead, its stone walls tinged with the soft glow of sunrise, shadows stretching across ivy-covered pillars. Elena awoke with a sense of urgency, her heart still racing from the discoveries of the previous night. The manor's pulse seemed almost tangible, vibrating through the walls, whispering that secrets yet unrevealed demanded her attention. Descending the stairs, Elena found the stranger waiting in the hall, his stormy eyes fixed on her. "We cannot ignore what lies beneath," he said, voice low, carrying both warning and anticipation. There are chambers you have yet to see, rooms that hold memories even the manor hesitates to reveal. Elena nodded, clutching the journal and letters that had become her compass through the estate. Together, they moved deeper into the manor, the floorboards groaning beneath their steps, shadows twisting and stretching toward them. Every door they opened seemed alive, releasing a faint sigh as if the house exhaled in recognition of their presence. Their exploration led them to a hidden passage behind a tapestry, a narrow corridor descending into the bowels of the manor. The air grew cooler, tinged with the scent of damp stone and old wood. Elena's lantern flickered, casting long, trembling shadows on the walls. The stranger walked beside her, his hand brushing against hers now and then, each touch sending a jolt through her that was equal parts fear and longing. At the corridor's end, they discovered a chamber untouched by time. Dust-covered trunks lined the walls, and shelves held jars filled with herbs, powders, and mysterious objects whose purpose was lost to history. In the center, a pedestal bore a bundle of letters tied with crimson ribbon. Elena reached for them, her hands trembling. As she untied the ribbon, she found correspondence between two lovers whose passion had been silenced by circumstance and societal constraints. Reading aloud, she felt the manor respond. The walls seemed to hum, the floorboards vibrating faintly beneath their feet. The letters spoke of secret meetings in the moonlit garden, promises of forever whispered beneath the stars, and the heartbreak of separation. The words resonated within Elena, each sentence a bridge between past and present, a reminder that love, even forbidden, could endure beyond time. The stranger stepped closer, his shadow merging with hers in the flickering lantern light. "These stories, they demand more than remembrance," he whispered. "They demand action, acknowledgement, perhaps even continuation." His hand brushed hers again, lingering, magnetic and purposeful. Elena's breath caught. The intimacy of the gesture, paired with the manor's subtle pulse, made her heart ache with both desire and fear. Hours passed as they pored over letters, journals, and sketches. Each artifact uncovered revealed a story of love constrained by secrecy, betrayal by circumstance, or endurance against the odds. Their proximity grew, and with it, the tension between them, a mixture of longing, fear, and the undeniable pull of shared destiny. Elena realized that their connection was not merely personal, it was entwined with the very essence of the manor itself. As night descended, they lit candles in the chamber, their flickering glow casting shifting shadows across the walls. Elena traced a name on a letter, Isabella to Gabriel, 1809. She shivered. The manor had preserved their voices, waiting for someone capable of understanding, capable of feeling. The stranger's hand found hers again, fingers interlacing, and he leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "We are part of this now," he murmured. "As they loved, we must endure. As they remembered, we must speak. As they waited, we must act." The chamber seemed to respond, a subtle vibration coursing through the stone floor, a soft whisper drifting on the night air. Outside, the fog thickened, swirling around the manor in ghostly spirals. Elena's heart pounded not from fear alone, but from the thrill of discovery, the intimacy of shared secrets, and the awakening of a desire that could no longer be ignored. Later, they emerged from the hidden chamber into the garden, where wild roses climbed along wrought iron fences, their crimson petals glowing faintly in the moonlight. Elena inhaled deeply, the scent of flowers and damp earth filling her senses. The stranger stepped closer, capturing her gaze with his intense storm-cloud eyes. "Every love story here," he said, voice low, "has survived because someone dared to witness it. We are the next witnesses, and perhaps the next lovers." Elena felt a shiver run through her, a mix of anticipation and the knowledge of danger. The manor's shadows seemed to lean closer, protective and expectant, as if acknowledging their union, their courage, their intertwined fates. She reached out, letting her hand rest in his. The moment was suspended in time, the past and present converging, the whispers of long-gone lovers merging with their own tentative passion. The night deepened, stars glimmering above the fields beyond. The wind carried faint echoes of voices, promises, and sighs through the cane fields. Elena whispered softly, "I will remember them, I will honor them, I will love, and not let these stories fade." He kissed her hand lightly, then her lips, sealing the vow. The manor seemed to exhale, the shadows folding in around them like a protective cloak. Haunted Vale had entrusted them with its stories, and in that trust, Elena and the stranger found not just purpose, but the first true flicker of a love that would endure against the weight of history, secrecy, and the trials still to come. The morning mist clung stubbornly to the fields surrounding Haunted Vale Manor, a pale veil that seemed almost alive, shifting and whispering in the soft wind. Elena awoke with a restless heart, the memory of last night's discoveries pressing against her mind. Every journal, every letter, every hidden sketch she had uncovered in the manor's secret chambers had drawn her deeper, not only into the past, but into the magnetic pull of the stranger whose stormy eyes haunted her every thought. She descended the stairs with a quiet determination, her fingers brushing the worn wood of the railing. The manor responded subtly to her presence, creaking in acknowledgement, as if the walls themselves exhaled in anticipation. The air smelled faintly of wild roses and old paper, the familiar scent weaving an intoxicating spell around her senses. The stranger met her in the hall, a shadow among shadows, his expression unreadable yet intense. "Today," he said, his voice a low vibration, "we delve further into the manor's heart. There are chambers even I have only glimpsed, rooms that contain memories the house has guarded jealously for generations." Elena felt a thrill of fear and anticipation mingle in her chest. "I am ready," she said, clutching the journal and letters that had become her compass through the labyrinth of history and emotion. Together, they navigated the manor's winding corridors, following clues hidden in sketches and annotations, tracing the paths of lives that had long been silenced. At the end of a narrow spiral staircase, they discovered a chamber beneath the foundations of the house. The air was colder here, damp and heavy with the scent of stone and decay. Trunks lined the walls, some sealed with rusted locks, others cracked open to reveal letters, trinkets, and portraits of unknown faces, eyes painted with an eerie realism that seemed to follow them as they moved. Elena lifted a bundle of letters tied with crimson ribbon. Each was a story of forbidden love, betrayal, or endurance under impossible circumstances. She read aloud, her voice trembling but resolute. The manor's pulse seemed to respond, vibrating through the stone floors, echoing in the walls, and weaving a spectral energy that made the room feel alive. Shadows stretched toward them, elongated and almost sentient, wrapping around the walls and ceiling as if listening intently. The stranger stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, lingering just enough to send a jolt of electricity through her. "These stories," he whispered, "they are not just memory. They are warnings, lessons, and sometimes they are demands." Elena's breath caught. "Demands? Yes," he said, his gaze intense. "The manor has chosen us, to witness, to continue, to endure. Love and memory are intertwined here, and to bear one is to accept the other." Hours passed as they explored every hidden corner of the chamber, piecing together a narrative of passion, suffering, and defiance. Each journal, sketch, and letter they uncovered revealed a new layer of human experience. Secret lovers meeting under the cloak of darkness, hearts torn apart by social constraints, sacrifices made in silence, and resilience that spanned decades. Elena realized that the manor itself was a living chronicle, each object a heartbeat of the past, waiting for someone who could feel, understand, and remember. By late afternoon, they emerged into the overgrown gardens. The wild roses climbed the stone walls, their crimson petals glowing faintly in the dying light. The stranger took Elena's hand, guiding her along a path where moonlight and shadow intertwined. "Each story we uncover strengthens the manor and strengthens us," he said softly. "But there is more to face. Not every secret here is benign. Some demand sacrifice, confrontation, even courage that borders on recklessness." Elena's pulse quickened, a mixture of fear and excitement. "I am not afraid," she whispered, though her fingers tightened around his. "I want to see it all. I want to understand everything." Night fell over Haunted Vale Manor, casting long, twisting shadows that seemed almost alive. Candles flickered in the hidden chamber, illuminating the sketches, letters, and artifacts they had uncovered. The wind whispered through broken windows, carrying faint echoes of the past, lovers' sighs, whispered promises, and long, forgotten regrets. Elena and the stranger stood close, the tension between them heightened by the knowledge that their destinies were now irrevocably linked, not only to each other, but to the manor itself. As they rested beside the fireplace in the main hall, Elena felt the full weight of the manor's legacy settle upon her. This place had demanded witnesses for centuries, and now it demanded more than observation. It demanded understanding, endurance, and a heart willing to bear both love and history. The stranger's lips brushed her hair in a gesture both protective and intimate. "We are part of this now," he murmured. "Our love, our courage, our choices. They will become part of the manor's story, and through it, we will honor those who came before us." Outside, the fields of California shimmered in the silver glow of the moon. The wind carried whispers of old promises, secret rendezvous, and undying devotion. Elena realized that her life, her heart, and her very soul were now entwined with Haunted Vale Manor, its secrets, and the man who had appeared like a shadow yet burned brighter than the sun. And beneath the haunted veil of history and memory, love, danger, and destiny converged, binding them together for a journey that would test their courage, passion, and resolve in ways neither could yet imagine. The first light of dawn crept across the California fields, spilling golden warmth over the rolling wheat and the ivy-clad walls of Haunted Vale Manor. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of wild roses and sun-baked earth, a silent witness to centuries of secrets, passion, and whispers that had shaped the estate. Elena stood at the top of the grand staircase, the journals and letters she had uncovered clutched in her hands, her heart pounding with anticipation and dread. Below her, the stranger awaited, his stormy eyes dark with intensity, yet softened by the subtle warmth that had slowly intertwined with her own growing feelings. "Today," he said quietly, "we face the final chapter of what the manor has chosen for us. Everything, the secrets, the love, the sacrifices, culminates now. Are you ready?" Elena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of centuries pressing on her shoulders, yet also the undeniable pull of her own heart. "I am," she whispered, "and I will not falter." Together, they descended into the heart of the manor, the corridors alive with shadows that seemed to stretch toward them like fingers eager to guide and protect. Every step echoed in the halls, merging with the whispers of long-gone lovers and the soft hum of the estate itself. The hidden chambers, the attic, the study, all had revealed fragments of the past, but one final room awaited, a grand chamber sealed by time, a place untouched by light for decades. The stranger pushed open the heavy door, revealing a room bathed in pale, spectral light filtering through cracks in the high windows. Dust swirled in the air, settling on a massive ornate mirror and a pedestal in the center of the room. Upon the pedestal lay a collection of letters carefully bound, each one addressed to lovers who had never reunited, their confessions frozen in time. Elena stepped closer, her breath shallow, sensing that this room held the ultimate truth of Haunted Vale Manor. "This," the stranger said, his voice a husky whisper, "is where the manor's heart beats strongest. The love, the pain, the betrayals, the courage, all converge here, and now it belongs to us to continue, to honor, to remember." Elena opened the first letter, the handwriting delicate and trembling, a confessional of love and despair from decades past. As she read, Tears pricked her eyes. Each word resonated deeply, echoing her own journey and the connection she felt to the stranger beside her. It was as though the estate itself had orchestrated their meeting, guiding them to this moment to bear witness and, in turn, to write their own chapter into the annals of Haunted Vale Manor. The stranger reached for her hand, his touch grounding her amid the flood of emotion. "We are part of this now," he said softly. "Our love, our courage, our choices. Everything we do will be etched into the manor's memory." Elena felt a rush of warmth, the years of sorrow, secrecy, and passion converging with her own heartbeat. She leaned into him, their foreheads touching, their breaths mingling. In that moment, the manor seemed to exhale, shadows curling around them protectively, as if the house itself approved, blessing the union that had been centuries in the making. Hours passed as they explored the room, touching the letters, reading the confessions, and piecing together stories that had remained hidden. Each revelation was mirrored by their growing intimacy, the subtle brush of hands, the lingering glance, the shared smiles that spoke of trust, devotion, and the awakening of a love that had been waiting, patient, through the decades. As twilight descended, Elena and the stranger stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the vast California fields. The sun dipped low, setting the sky ablaze with crimson and gold, painting the wheat in fiery hues. The wind whispered through the stalks, carrying echoes of laughter, sighs, and promises long forgotten. Elena closed her eyes, allowing the breeze to wrap around her, feeling both the weight and the beauty of the manor's legacy. He pulled her close, lips brushing hers in a kiss both gentle and urgent. "We are the heirs," he whispered, "the witnesses, the lovers who will endure." Elena smiled through tears, the culmination of fear, desire, and destiny settling in her heart. "And we will," she said softly, "we will remember, we will love, and we will ensure their stories, and ours, are never forgotten." The manor seemed to hum with approval, the air vibrating with a resonance that was almost musical. Shadows danced across the walls, intertwining with the fading light of dusk, while the fields beyond shimmered silver under the emerging moon. For the first time, Elena felt the full breadth of Haunted Vale Manor's magic, not in spirits or ghosts, but in the enduring power of memory, love, and the courage to witness and embrace it. That night, as they stood together beneath the haunted veil of history, the manor and the land beyond whispered promises of new beginnings. Lovers of the past, present, and future seemed to watch silently, approvingly. Elena and the stranger, their hearts bound and their destinies intertwined, stepped into a story that was theirs to write, a story of passion, courage, and unbreakable love, a final chapter in the grand, eternal saga of Haunted Vale Manor. And as the moon rose high, casting silver across the fields, the whispers of the manor carried through the night. Love endures, love remembers, love survives. Elena pressed her hand to his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart, and knew, without doubt, that she had found both the manor's secret and her own. Love eternal, passionate, and unyielding beneath the haunted veil.